Hello again, my name is Michael.
And my name is Grace.
And welcome back to Disney Through the Ages.
On this show, my husband and I are watching every animated Disney film in order, starting with Snow White and continuing, through the ages.
Then, after watching each movie, we'll come here to give a review and talk about whether these old classics hold up to modern standards, as well as seeing how Disney movies have evolved over the years. This week, we're watching Fantasia, which I'm honestly not too excited about. What are your thoughts going into this, and what are your expectations about Fantasia? Because honestly, I don't really know anything about this movie.
Same, and I am ashamed as a Disney fan that I don't know much about a Disney movie. So,
yeah, that's pretty bad. You're the one who started a Disney podcast here.
I know, but I am excited to watch it just to fill out the repertoire and have it fresh in my mind. And honestly, I don't know what it's about, so it'll be fun to watch it and find out, because I think I've maybe seen it once. So.
Yeah, and like I said, I honestly don't really know much about this movie. I believe it's something to do with classical music. I don't know. I guess without further ado, we'll go ahead and watch this movie, and it'll be a short 2 seconds for you listening to this, but it's going to be probably a long couple of hours for us. So hopefully we'll see you on the other side. Phew, that was really something.
That was definitely something that I realized why it was not on the VHS shelf growing up.
So, any opening thoughts?
It's hard to form the thoughts into words. There's a lot that happened in the movie because of the way it's set up. So maybe we should just kind of start with the talking about the quote plot unquote.
Yeah. Well, first things first, at the very beginning, I was like, hey, this whole first 10 minutes so far has been live action. I don't have to watch the rest of this. It's not an animated movie.
I know. I was like, that's what I thought too. I was like, I thought we were reviewing animated Disney films.
Right? This was animated about the same amount of Space Jam. Where it was not, that's a little bit to the extreme, but it did have a lot of live action parts mixed in with the animation, which was kind of weird considering it's an animated movie,
Yeah, it was unexpected. It was started out and I was like, oh, well, this is different. I was like, where's the storybook?
Yeah.
Also, where are the credits at the beginning? There's no credits at the beginning. That means it's not a good movie.
That's a bad sign, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I guess beginning with the plot or the overview of this movie, because it doesn't really have a plot. It's 8 pieces of music, classical music, and every piece of music has a piece of animation that goes with it. And I thought it was really cool that the music inspired the animation. They talked about, these music pieces were played for the artist at Walt Disney Studios, and the artist animated what the music made them feel. And so I thought that was a pretty neat premise for the movie. Agreed.
And as far as originality, it was definitely original. I've never seen another animated quote unquote movie
Yeah, one thing that annoyed me right off the bat was how much description there is in this movie. I can't remember the guy's name, but there's an announcer dude who tells you before each piece of music what music you're about to hear, but also the entirety of what you're about to see. And so for the first piece, it's very abstract. And he tells you, okay, this is the piece of music we're listening to, and it's going to start out with just some colors that might have been inspired by the music. And then it's going to flow into shapes. And then it's going to, and the whole time throughout the whole movie in The Sorcerer's Apprentice, he says, this is the story of Mickey Mouse, or the Sorcerer's Apprentice, who is tasked with carrying water, and he brings a broom to life, but then he realizes he's bitten off more than he can chew because he can't remember how to make it stop. And it's just let us watch the movie, dude.
Yeah, I don't know. It was really weird. It's describing everything you're about to see before you see it, and it's just well, then what's the point of you showing it to me? You just told me all about it.
Exactly. It reminded me of that scene in Monty Python and the Holy Grail when everyone is just get on with it!
Yeah, exactly. Although I will say he had a very nice voice.
He
Like I
did.
don't know what else he was in, but like it was a very nice, a very like familiar voice.
Yeah. I wonder if he's been like the narrator in other Disney movies or just other movies we've seen. You know, like he has that very stereotypical narratorly voice. That's not a word, but yeah,
Well, it is now.
it is. But speaking of that first abstract piece, I did like that quite a lot. I felt it was very creative, where we had like just pieces of instruments floating across the screen at points. There was like half of a violin's bow appearing over and over on the screen, or there was like the bridge of a cello just kind of floating by without the rest of the cello. You know, just like very artistic, I think.
Yeah, I will say I prefer the more abstract pieces. The ones where they were trying to make a plot fit with the music didn't always work for me personally.
Yeah. I don't know if I agree with that necessarily, because honestly, I liked the first three, and then I looked at we get done with the first three songs, and I'm like, okay, you know, we're chugging right along. This has been a long time. You know, got to be getting somewhere near like maybe half done or 3/4, something like that. And I look, and we're at 40 minutes out of 2 hours. We're literally a third of the way done, and I'm like, nope, no, this is what? 2 hours of just animation set to music is so much. So much.
Yeah, with random interruptions by a narrator telling you what you're about to see.
Like,
it just felt like a lot. And then, like, I was really disappointed when we got through to the middle of it. And it was like 15-minute intermission. But then there wasn't actually a 15-minute intermission. And
yeah. So before we get to that point, I did have a note where the second piece was Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker Suite, which I thought it was interesting. The narrator told us that Tchaikovsky himself actually hated the Nutcracker Suite. That was something cool to learn. That's interesting. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. I thought it was very well done. All the animation was beautiful. And it was extremely whimsical and magical. It had that Disney magic. You know, if you wanted to tell someone, like if someone asked you what is Disney magic, you could show them that scene and they would get what it is, I think.
I agree. I also really liked the like semi-story arc that was going on with summerish fairies, and then they bring out fall and then winter, and like I don't know, I just really like that. Like it was really interesting. And I also, like you mentioned, I liked how the narrator actually had something unique to say. Like he told what the song was, and then like he gave a brief fact about it that was interesting and like made you connect. I like knowing the story behind songs and the story behind movies. You're probably going to hear me talk about a lot of the story behind movies when we get to more movies that I know more about. So this one I didn't know much about. So I don't know. I just like knowing the story behind a story.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say I thoroughly enjoyed that entire thing with the pixies, and it was so great, stuck out in my mind when the winter pixies come out and they're skating along the water and it's turning to frost underneath their feet.
Yeah. You haven't seen the movie, but there's the series of animated like Tinkerbell movies, and like I could see like this kind of being like some kind of subtle inspiration behind like those movies later. And that is kind of a theme I saw like while watching these is like, I wonder if that inspired this from this movie later, you know?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I loved the pixies. The one thing I didn't like was the fish swimming around scene was really cool for like a minute, but it went on for like 10. So that was the first point of this movie, Fantasia in general, kind of dragging on for me.
Yeah, I really liked the fish though, because they reminded me of the fish from Pinocchio that we just watched.
That's
so
very true.
I was like, oh, it looks like the fish from Pinocchio. It's so cute.
Yeah.
But yeah, the second song was definitely like, I liked it the best. I'm not a big music person though, so this movie wasn't made for me. This movie was really made for adults with a good attention span who enjoy going to the opera. That's not me.
This was definitely not a kid's movie, and honestly not a movie that I could see being made today, because today people in general just don't have the attention span it takes to watch a movie like this. Like you said, this is aimed at people who would go to a night at the opera and watch someone sing in a different language that they don't understand for 3 hours. That's what this movie felt like, honestly. Now, the third scene was inarguably the best. It's what this movie's known for, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, which even if you haven't seen this movie, you've probably seen Mickey dressed up as a sorcerer and wondered why. That's from this movie. And also it was the introduction of Yen Sid, which, if you don't know, that's the sorcerer that Mickey is an apprentice under. It's Disney spelled backwards. But he's in Disney Emoji Blitz and Kingdom Hearts and other Disney franchises is kind of like a less well-known character. But yeah, The Sorcerer's Apprentice I thought was fantastic. It made me like laugh out loud when he brought the broom to life and it started marching with the music and it's just dum 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 while they're taking steps. It was just so adorable and so well done.
I really liked it, but it felt really out of place in context of everything else.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, because everything else was either very abstract and whimsical like the fairies and stuff, or trying to be hyper realistic and failing, in my opinion, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah, I don't know. It just felt very much out of place in context of everything else. Like, it had a definite plot, and it also had a recognizable like Disney character as well, which felt really strange to me.
I think for me, it made it feel like a Disney movie, not part of this musical animation experiment. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, it was the only part of the movie that felt like a Disney movie.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Yeah, I totally agree. Although, on the topic of some of the other ones being a little too realistic, I think the flooding in The Sorcerer's Apprentice struck a little too close to home. It was a little too real because we've had a little bit of flooding in our basement recently. And so I can very much sympathize with Mickey's helplessness in that moment. Is like, wow, they really captured what it feels like to try to bail out a flooding house.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Oh.
So yeah, at this point, this is where I look at my phone and I'm like, are you kidding me? We still have an hour and 20 minutes left. That's like the length of a normal movie in a lot of cases. So yeah, moving on to part 4.
Did not like.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All about evolution and then the dinosaurs and then a dinosaur was killing the other dinosaur. My notes is like dinosaurs and then a frowny face because it made me sad and I didn't like it.
It was very much a depressing thing. And I mean, in fairness, the guy did tell us going in exactly what to expect. All the dinosaurs die. And he was right, but I was not expecting them to die so brutally on screen in a Disney movie. You don't usually see a character bite the neck of another character and then pan across that second character's body as you watch the life drain from their eyes. That doesn't happen in Disney movies usually. So yeah, that was a bit of a letdown. Just watching, and I mean, it was not one dinosaur dying; it was all of them dying of dehydration and getting eaten by Tyrannosaurus Rex, and just one thing after another. Everybody died. There was tar pits where these guys are struggling to get out. It was so sad.
It was pretty scarring.
Yeah, and also honestly, this is a common theme, but I think that song went on 3 times longer than it needed to. It's like they were trying to match the animation to the length of an already existing song. I get it. But it didn't need to be that long. It was just so dragged out. And then also, the animation in that one just wasn't good. There were, like I was talking about earlier, there were some bits of it that were trying to be hyper-realistic. There was space that actually looked like space. And then on top of it, there's little Disney sparkles and fireworks that look hand-drawn. And then, there's volcanoes erupting and they look realistic smoke. And then the bubbles are just like slow motion, like Black Cauldron bubbling type thing. It was very much a disconnect of the 2 types of animation they used in this scene. And that's how I felt really with the rest of the movie, honestly.
Yeah, like there in each of the rest of the songs, like there was a portion I really enjoyed. And then the rest of it just was uncomfortable or I didn't like it. And it just... And, I understand that you're not going to like every song, you're not going to like every piece of animation, but there was just so much that made me feel uncomfortable, and I didn't like, I don't know, these pieces of music are meant to make you feel something, And what I felt was discomfort, and I like they shouldn't all make me feel like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of, there was a lot of nudity in this movie. I mean, a lot of it was not graphic, but there was like little naked babies flying around. And how hard would it be to put a little diaper on Cupid? But instead, he just has no privates. And it was just uncanny and uncomfortable as he's flying around.
So weird.
And like lots of female centaurs with no shirts on, but like kind of weirdly censored, but not. And then at the very end with the scene with on I think it was called Bald Mountain, there's this whole scene with the devil as like this giant top of the mountain, and then like there's actually nudity there. Like you see some nipples going across the screen in a G-rated Disney movie, which is just weird.
And then in the one song, there's hippos and they're wearing skirts and they're trying to pull the skirts down, and it's like, what?
Yeah. And then the hippos are wearing these like tutu skirts, and then the elephants come in and they're not wearing anything, and so it feels uncomfortable that some animals are wearing clothes and others aren't.
But they're all wearing ballet shoes.
They're all wearing ballet shoes until you get to the crocodiles. The crocodiles aren't wearing ballet shoes, but they're wearing capes, so I guess that makes it okay. It was so weird and uncanny and uncomfortable from intermission forward, which, like you said, we didn't get an intermission. Instead, they're like, there'll be a 15-minute intermission, and then here, talk about the soundtrack, which is a line that wavers a lot when you make noise. But like, I was honestly expecting like a visualizer, like when you open up Windows Media Player back in the day and you could see the sound spikes across the screen. That'd be really cool. But instead, this was just an animated line that they animated to make funny shapes when sounds were made. And it was just like a really weird, why is this even in the movie? It's not classical music. It's just making random noises.
Yeah, this wasn't, or this shouldn't have been a movie. It was short stories all strung together. And I think watching these things individually as a short story, I may have liked them more. Yeah. I mean, some of them would still make me uncomfortable and I still wouldn't like them. But some of them I would have enjoyed better just watching it as its own separate thing.
I agree. I feel like it could have been 10 or 15 minute segments in between episodes of a show on the Disney Channel, and it would have been better. Mm-hmm. Or something like that, like a VHS with 20 minutes of one episode of this 8-part series. Yeah.
Overall, I do feel like the concept itself was very original, and I liked the music, obviously. Like, the music is good, classical music.
Yeah, the music was easily the best part, because everything else was based around the music. So it's everything else that fell short.
Yeah, but the animation wasn't really that great, and then there wasn't really, like, a plot. There was kind of a plot, but not really, and some had more plot and less plot, and it's just weird, and just... This whole movie was just a kind of a roller coaster, but that was mostly just a really like short one to go with, like ah.
Yeah, it was like at the beginning of a roller coaster when there's that going up the hill, and then you hit Sorcerer's Apprentice. You're at the top of the hill, and then you go straight down.
That implies fun.
That's fair. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so we're being really harsh on this movie, but like we're not the only ones. I looked it up afterwards because this movie on Disney Plus has a disclaimer that says, "Hey, this is presented in its original format, the way it was intended to be, and so it may contain some outdated cultural depictions or something along those kinds of lines." So I looked it up, and a lot of people have a problem with this movie, specifically the centaur scene, because there's a whole lot of the women bowing down to the men and some gender stereotypes there, but also there's some racial stereotyping there with the zebra centaurs who have darker skin and have some heavy stereotypical African traits to them. And so a lot of people have a problem with that. So, I mean, it's a product of its time, is the only defense there is for that, which is not a great defense, honestly. But figured it was worth mentioning. If you haven't watched this movie and you want to, be aware that there are some possibly objectionable things to it, including but not limited to lot of soft nudity, and then also some racial and gender problems there too.
Yeah, this isn't a movie I would ever want to like watch with a kid or anything like that. I felt uncomfortable. I would have felt uncomfortable watching it alone.
Yeah.
Like,
as an adult, I felt uncomfortable watching this movie, and so and I definitely would not want to show this even to like, my nephews are a little bit older. One's 10, and so I wouldn't even want to watch it with him, much less a little kid who you might think would be okay to watch a G-rated Disney movie. This is not the one to go with.
Yeah, I thought Pinocchio kind of disappointed me, but after watching this, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So I feel like we don't really have a whole lot more to say on this movie. You want to give it a rating?
Oh boy, low one.
You want me to go first?
Sure.
All right. So honestly, if I was rating just the first 3 pieces of music, just the first 40 minutes of this movie, 8 or 9 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed the first third of the movie. The entire rest of the movie, minus the first third, 2 out of 10, honestly. So aggregate, putting it all together, probably like a 3 or 4 is probably my rating for the whole movie overall. Like I said, if you just take the first third and made those a separate piece, loved it. The Sorcerer's Apprentice especially was fantastic. But just the rest of the movie really drags it down.
Yeah, I mean, if I was just watching the first third of it, I'd probably still just give it like a 5 or a 6. So like my rating of like the entire movie, I think I'd give it a 3. Just not very enjoyable.
Yeah. Honestly, this is one of those examples of it probably was mind-blowing at the time, but this one doesn't get the nostalgia points that Snow White or Pinocchio did.
Also, one of my small complaints about Pinocchio, like, really applies here was that the suspension of disbelief. I was checking my watch, like, the whole time. Like, there was no suspension of disbelief there.
Yeah, I was staring at my 3DS the whole time thinking, can I just play Animal Crossing yet?
And this week, we only have one email from Amber. She's a friend of ours, and we really appreciate her writing in, so we have something for our listener mail segment.
Amber writes, I really enjoyed listening to your opinions of Pinocchio. Even though I had just recently rewatched it thanks to Disney+, I couldn't believe how many scenes I forgot about until you brought them up. Also, I agree with Michael. Of course you do, because Michael's right. Pinocchio is better than Snow White. I just found it a lot more entertaining and enjoyable to watch, especially since it looks amazing for being a hand-drawn film. I thought I'd share a fun fact with y'all too, in case it's something you didn't know. It doesn't necessarily have to deal with the movie in general, but with the When You Wish Upon a Star song. When the Disney Cruise Line ships depart from ports, they blow the horn to the tune of Disney songs, including When You Wish Upon a Star. I remember watching a Tim Tracker video when they went on a cruise and found that to be such a fun touch to Disney cruises. Hopefully I'm able to hear it for myself one day. From Amber and Tucker.
Well, now I really want to go on a Disney cruise, although during these times it's not going to be possible for a while. But Snow White's better. Just kidding. But yeah, no, I really appreciate you writing in, and there's a lot that happens in that movie, so it's really easy to forget like everything that happens.
Yeah, I mean, I remember some parts of Pinocchio very vividly, but now even just, a little bit after watching it, there's already things that I've forgotten about it. But yeah, that is so cool to know that they blow the horn to different Disney songs. I feel like I'm going to have to look that up on YouTube just because, like you said, with everything going on in the world right now, it's going to be a while before we get a chance to go on a cruise or anything. Not like we were going to be able to afford to anytime soon anyway, but, we can dream.
Exactly. So thanks again for writing in. And to everyone else listening in, if you'd like to reach out to us, we are on Twitter or Instagram at Disney Ages, or you can send us an email at disneyagespodcast@gmail.com.
All of that information is listed in the show notes, so you can find us there. And the songs in this podcast are by Kevin MacLeod and are used under Creative Commons license. So check the show notes for the information and links to find out some really awesome free music.
That's all we have for you this week, so come back next week to hear us review Dumbo.
Until next time.
See ya!